us. I'd like to go ahead and get started while my internet connection is good. We are very excited to have this info session this evening to disseminate information about our AIFIS-Luce fellowships for Indonesian researchers looking to travel to the US in order to advance research collaboration with Indonesian scholars. Thank you again for joining us. We have on our schedule this evening, evening in the US and morning in Indonesia. So good morning, everyone. Selamat pagi. We have on our schedule this evening, we will be hearing from Pak Abdul Hadi, who is a former AIFIS-Luce fellow who conducted research in the US in 2022. So he'll be sharing a little bit of his experience of having received an AIFIS-Luce fellowship in the past. We will also be hearing from Gigi Wicks, who is professor of anthropology at the University of Montana, as well as AIFIS current vice president. She will be sharing a little bit about how one finds a US counterpart and what are some of the details of the review process that your application submissions will be considered within. And finally, we will be hearing from Dr. Isabella Tirtawaluyo, who is Assistant Director of Michigan State University's Asian Studies Center, who will be sharing a little bit about the proposal structure and what makes for a strong proposal for this kind of application. Before we go on to our guests, I would like to share some of the basic information about eligibility for this grant. As I mentioned, this grant is largely designed for Indonesian researchers who are based in Indonesia or outside of North America to come and conduct research or research exchange with US scholars. So there's a wide variety of types of research that can be conducted under this grant.
Is Megan online? Internet connection okay?
I think she freezes.
Mm.
Okay. Oh. Hold on. Sorry about that. Hope she will.
Sorry.
She returns.
Thank you, Pak Yosef, for taking the reins for just a second. I'm going to keep my intro even shorter since much of the eligibility requirements are already listed online. But the main thing that we really want to be facilitating here are Indonesian researchers, largely with a preference for those based in Indonesia, to come and explore their research with American scholars. So I will end my intro so as not to be interrupted by my funky internet connection. And I want to pass the torch to Pa Abdul Hadi, who I see has joined us as well. So Pa Abdul Hadi, if you could please. Yes, thank you for joining us. I will cede the floor to you and have you share a little bit about your time conducting an AIFIS-Luce fellowship in the US in 2022. So please go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, Indonesian time, everyone. Yeah. I would like to share some slide. Yeah, I have prepared some slide. Is it possible for me to do share screen?
Yes, please do.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Wait. Okay, I mentioned by Megan that I went for the visit in September 2022, and I was visited Florida International University for 30 days in a duration, but effective it was 26 days actually. Wait, I'm still looking for slide. I think I saved it here. Okay, this here. Yeah, it's a general testimony. I think I would like to say the visit was something like opportunity and challenge, something like that. Yeah, and then it was because firstly, yeah, I have to introduce actually. I'm from Lambung Mangkurat University. That is located far away from Jakarta. So it is 1 hour and a half. I am using airplane to go to Jakarta, and wait, I think I can go back to the Zoom, and then something is okay.
Would it be productive if we move on to Gigi, and then maybe we can come back to you once you have found your slides?
No, I think my slide is coming now.
Oh, wonderful. Just on time.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. So everyone, can you see my slide?
Yes.
Yeah, and then Megan and everyone, to make my presentation more understandable, especially for our potential applicant, I please allow me to present it in bahasa Indonesia.
Silakan, nggak apa-apa. Bisa bahasa
Yeah, yeah. But the slide I think is
Silakan.
written in English, so our American colleague may also understand. Ya, Bapak Ibu, kalau disebut testimoni, barangkali kata kuncinya bagi saya ke Amerika itu adalah satu kesempatan dan tantangan, begitu ya. Nah, saya sudah tinggal di beberapa negara ya. Saya menyelesaikan S3, saya 6 tahun di Jepang, lalu beberapa tahun juga di Italia. Nah, dan pernah juga ke Cina dan beberapa negara lain begitu. Jadi satu mimpi sebetulnya saya melihat kebesaran Amerika begitu ya. Nah, sehingga saya berusaha keras untuk dapat berangkat ke Amerika. Nah, sebelum mengikuti program Luce AIFIS ini, sebetulnya saya dulu pernah proses di Fulbright ya. Nah, Fulbright sudah lolos seleksi, lalu sudah mendapat host scientist di Washington State University, jadi sangat semangat sekali sudah ketika itu. Nah, tapi kemudian visa ya, persoalan visa. Nah, ini juga mungkin yang saya mau share ke kawan-kawan, satu tantangan begitu visa ini ya. Termasuk ketika saya sudah mendapatkan undangan untuk berangkat ke Florida di tahun 2019 sebetulnya. saya sudah dipastikan ada dukungan dana dari AIFIS ya. Nah, tapi sampai saat saya harus berangkat itu visanya tidak keluar begitu. Nah, jadi memang masih 2 minggu atau 3 minggu begitu ya, belum tanggal keberangkatan. Nah, tapi kemudian untuk pesan tiket kita perlu waktu, lalu juga saya tidak mau berisiko tiketnya terbakar. Nah, sehingga 3 minggu sebelum periode yang sudah disepakati dengan AIFIS, nah itu saya batalkan begitu. Saya mengontak ketika itu direktur masih Ibu siapa ya ketika itu ya. Nah, lalu beliau setuju. Nah, juga memang saat itu adalah masa COVID ya, masa COVID. Nah, jadi tidak bisa berangkat. Nah, tapi kemudian ini saya juga terima kasih kepada AIFIS yang selalu mau diajak berbicara begitu ya, mengemukakan kesulitan-kesulitan. Nah, sehingga pada tahun 2022 awal, nah saya dapat lagi addendum dari invitation. Nah, juga kebetulan host university saya itu merencanakan saya menjadi courtship profesor sana. Kebetulan saya profesor, jadi semacam visiting profesor lah begitu, dan mereka juga bisa addendum juga, tapi cukup rumit kawan-kawan ya, Bapak Ibu sekalian. Terutama ini saya yang di daerah ya, untuk ke Jakarta itu tidak cukup 2 juta ya. Kita sudah harus save 5 juta begitu baru bisa langsung ke Jakarta begitu. Nah, tapi ya itu alhamdulillah kuncinya saya kira bisa memang diurus lebih awal begitu ya. Nah, tapi juga input barangkali bagi AIFIS dan ini saya lihat pada Pak Joseph juga. Nah, mungkin invitation bisa lebih awal sehingga kita yang di daerah terutama bisa mengantisipasi. Oke, alhamdulillah ya kondisi COVID juga 2022 itu masih ya. Saya dapat visa dan bisa berangkat. Nah, sehingga tanggal 4 September rasanya saya berangkat. Nah, terus ini ya. Oke, lalu dan di sana ya ini kawan-kawan ya, kita appreciate kepada host scientist ya. Di sana saya dijemput di bandara ya. Nah, dan terus terang memang Amerika berbeda dengan negara lain ya, dalam artian security dan sebagainya ya. Jepang sudah dikenal barangkali high security, tapi ternyata di Amerika lebih ketat lagi ya. Nah, tapi ini ya dengan post scientist datang ke bandara segala sesuatu bisa diklarifikasi. Selama 26 hari di sana, saya manfaatkan waktu sebaik-baiknya ya. Nah, di awal karena host scientist juga ada kesibukan, nah saya manfaatkan untuk membaca buku begitu, mengakses jurnal-jurnal Scopus. Nah, kebetulan di Universitas Lambung Mangkurat itu tidak ada free access untuk Scopus ya. Kita belum bisa membayar langganan Scopusnya. Nah, ketika di Florida itu saya manfaatkan ya, mendownload buku, jurnal dan sebagainya. Nah, kemudian bidang saya adalah bidang ilmu tanah ya. Nah, saya mengkaji tentang emisi gas rumah kaca dari tanah gambut. Nah, sehingga dari awal saya desain, saya akan mengunjungi lahan basah Everglades di Florida ya. Nah, dan ya ini beruntung host scientist saya itu dia sebetulnya researcher, bukan profesor begitu ya. Nah, di atas dia ada lagi Profesor Michael Rose. Nah, yang kalau Profesor Michael Rose memang tidak banyak interaksi dengan saya ya. Nah, tapi Dr. J. Pisah itu yang banyak interaksi. Nah, dan juga anggota-anggota lab dia, saya sebut geng dia begitu, yang selalu siap sedia ya, seperti yang terlihat di gambar ini, nah membantu saya untuk ke lapangan begitu ya. Padahal September, Juli itu kan summer di sana, panas sekali ya. Nah, seandainya saya tidak ada, katanya mereka tidak ke lapangan begitu. Nah, kemudian yang bisa juga kita contoh di sana bahwa staf administrasi itu atau laboran lah lebih persisnya ya, itu mempunyai peran yang sangat vital dan mereka bekerja sangat sungguh-sungguh ya, seperti di sini ada Santi kita bilangnya ya, Santiago. Nah, ini hanya S2 ya. Nah, tapi saya bilang justru dia ini profesornya di sana ya, yang menguasai sekali segala urusan di laboratorium. Nah, terus aplikasi komputer juga bisa kita download ya, secara free of charge, sepanjang kita akses katanya lewat email universitas ya. Nah, kebetulan ya itu sebagai visiting professor saya diberikan keleluasaan untuk menggunakan hampir semua akses internet. Lebih-lebih, nah juga staff ya, saya dipersilahkan untuk masih boleh nyuruh-nyuruh begitu saya di sana ya. Ada beberapa staff yang mungkin ada kesibukan, lalu saya ada kepentingan, nah, dia bersedia saja untuk meluangkan waktu begitu. Juga yang bisa kita contoh barangkali bahwa di Institute of Environment namanya tempat saya itu di Florida. Nah, itu ada seminar 2 mingguan yang dipimpin oleh profesornya begitu. Ini Profesor Michael Rose ya. Nah, jadi memang hanya 2 kali saya bertemu dengan beliau ini ya, yang secara langsung. Nah, selebihnya ini di rapat virtual kita bertemu ya, mungkin juga karena COVID sehingga mobilitas masih dibatasi. Lalu di akhir minggu terakhir saya di sana, nah kami dengan post scientist ini mendesain rencana penelitian yang akan kita laksanakan ya. Nah, antara lain di Kalimantan Selatan itu ada wetland juga, ada lahan basah yang yaitu cita-citanya kita jadikan seperti Everglade lah begitu ya. Nah, meskipun mungkin perlu waktu yang lama, tapi kita usahakan. Lalu saya juga dilibatkan dalam seminar tugas akhir mahasiswa ya. Nah, kebetulan pas saya di sana, meskipun di akhir-akhir libur summer ya. Nah, jadi ada beberapa mahasiswa yang kemudian memang waktunya mereka untuk mempresentasikan skripsinya. Nah, saya dilibatkan di situ. Itu saya kira yang saya jalani dan bisa saya share kepada teman-teman. Nah, saat ini saya sedang menulis publikasi ya, termasuk tadi malam saya komunikasi dengan Dr. Shah ya, Dr. Shah untuk publikasi di jurnal. Okay, everyone, that is what I can share in this info session. Once again, thank you very much for invitation and also for a great opportunity I have spent in Florida. Terima kasih, selamat pagi. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you so much, Professor Hadi. And really, thank you for sharing what a rich experience you had in your visit to the U.S. One thing that Pat Hadi's experience that I'd like to be a takeaway for our audience is the breadth of engagement that you have opportunities for while you're in the U.S. Accessing libraries, exchanging different kinds of methodologies, and just kind of embedding yourself in the academic context of the US counterpart that you're working with. Also, his tips for getting ahead, starting the visa process ahead of time. There can always be administrative delays, immigration delays. So we do recommend once you are awarded an AIFIS grant, to really begin those steps as soon as possible to make sure that there is enough time to be able to engage your grant before the deadline of usage.
Yeah.
Thank you again, Professor Hadi. I will now share the screen with Professor Gigi Wicks. If you would mind, I'd like to share your screen as well. I'll let you take it away.
Okay. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to bring up my screen again. But let me just talk, because we can answer questions later and I can draw on. There's two aspects to my talk. First, finding a partner, and second, to emphasize the criteria for evaluation of the proposals. And in finding a partner, I would urge all applicants to go to the AIFIS website and look at all the partner members in AIFIS, all the different institutions. Each institution has a representative that is a member of the AIFIS board. And you can reach out to those people to inquire about possible counterparts at their institution or in your field, because these are all people who have worked in Indonesia, many of whom have traveled to Indonesia. They understand the relationship of counterparts and how important it is to have a host. And if it's your first trip to the United States, we want that counterpart relationship to be as good as the one Hadi described. And so I recommend that people look first to AIFIS member institutions to find a counterpart in your field. Now, if you already have the name of a counterpart that you would like to approach, then by all means reach out to them and start through an email conversation to ask them what it is at their institution, because counterpart relationships may differ from school to school, from university to university. Some will be very hands-on, as Hadi described, meeting you at the airport, helping find housing, help really embed you in the research community. Others might be more hands-off and will expect that you'll be more working in an institution, maybe in a library or an archive, and they'll be there to answer questions and help, but it varies from institution to institution, and we want you to pick the right counterpart so that your experience is as good as possible. The other source of possible counterparts that I recommend is to inquire at the National Resource Center institutions, and there are 6 in the United States that are these universities that have long-time Southeast Asian centers. And those are also places where you can communicate directly with the office of the center and ask them questions about reference to possible scholars that you've read or seen their proposal or their preparation, their presentation, and you would like to approach them. If they know them, then you can have an introduction through the Center for Southeast Asian Studies. So that would be at Cornell, at University of Michigan, University of Wisconsin, and then on the West Coast, University of Washington in Seattle, Berkeley, and UCLA in California, and Hawaii. And at any one of those centers, it again can be a place where you can meet a counterpart, an individual or a center or an institute that is connected to your particular research. We are funding these fellowships across fields. So it is a wide array of different kinds of scholarship that we hope to invite to apply. But once you have your counterpart, it may be at an institution that has no Indonesian studies, in which what you will have in common will be your field work itself, or the study in a particular library collection or an archive. So in that case, then you will be really an emissary to introduce the value of your research in Indonesian studies to that scholar who might be rather isolated, might be the only person who knows about Indonesia at their university. So again, we want that counterpart relationship to begin through introductions, find the right partnership, and then that person can write a letter to invite you. And of course, they will be helping with the whole process of hosting so that you can gain your visa. I want to shift now to the criteria for evaluation. the teams of reviewers who read the evaluations, who read the applications, we look, of course, at qualifications and your project. But I think the one thing I want to stress is how limited this time and space of this grant is. It is 6 weeks. And in some cases, because of the criteria, you may only be in the country for 40 days. And so you want to be as focused as possible so that your research is feasible. We don't expect you to do more work than you could possibly do in 40 days or 60 days, 6 weeks of a visit. And so the feasibility of the project, that it can be completed during the time, is important to remember. This is an introduction to what hopefully will develop into a partnership beyond the visit. As Hadi described, you may begin to develop relationships and networks with the scholars at the institution you visit, and you may be able to apply for much larger and longer term fellowships like Fulbright. That's the hope of these AIFIS fellowships. They're meant to be a short stay to introduce each other and begin to work on projects together and hopefully be able to continue that collaboration. Besides feasibility, the other thing to remember is that these are hosted in the goal of expanding and broadening US citizens' understanding of Indonesia. So you may be the first person to visit that university from Indonesia, and whatever field of research you do, it's going to broaden people's understanding of Indonesia. So those presentations and seminars and workshops that we ask people to give after they visited the US, the point is to have more exchange and more collaboration in the future. And we look that people will have a very focused project that they can share. And then that when they give that presentation, AIFIS will help broadcast those seminars virtually so that more people can learn about your work and learn about Indonesian studies. Okay, I'll stop there so we can move to Bella.
Thank you, Dr. Gigi Wicks and Dr. Megan Hewitt and all. Good evening for those in the US, and good morning to those in Indonesia. I also, following Gigi's footsteps, I have two main points that I could share about the AIFIS-Luce Fellowship, and that is regarding the proposal. So I hope that I can propose some ways to approach developing your proposal that would be streamlined and tepat sasaran, begitu sih. So I will also have a PowerPoint. Let me share my screen. Share screen. All right. Oh, I can't see how I do this. Okay. All right. So are you able to see my screen okay, everyone?
Yes, Miss.
Thank you. Hi, Janira. Janin, Masanas. So let me first frame this proposal that if you are interested in the AIFIS-Luce Fellowship, let me frame this as a proposal among many proposals. There are different types of proposals when it comes to research. And I'm enlisting a few here just as an example, because I want to highlight how different functions and different target audience of a proposal should be really reflected in the content of the proposal. So far on the left side, yang paling kiri, I have what you would imagine as a thesis or dissertation proposal. These are proposals where you write, if you were a student in the master's or PhD or other context, you would write the proposal that's a stereotypical proposal. You have a lot of the problem definition, the research questions, and why it's significant academically and why it's significant socially. You have a lot of explanation of the conceptual framework or theoretical framework, and then you go into methods and methodological approach as it is informed by your conceptual framework. And then, of course, the data analysis, and analyses, discussion, and so on and so forth. So on the left side is a proposal that's really about the research that you want to embark in. And so on the second icon here, I have sort of and then you have, you're used to perhaps also doing a conference or a paper presentation proposal. This is an abstract normally, it's a very summarized version that proposes to the conference organizer, for example, or the symposium organizer, this is the bit that I would like to present. And it's normally either a segment of your research, but it's very streamlined. So you have only a few lines of why this is significant, but you want to go quickly into the research question. You want to go quickly, what is my findings and why did I come up with that in a discussion? So it's still kind of like a proposal that is really on the research content, but abbreviated. It's abbreviated. It's very short. Now I want to move to the third icon. You might have in the past done a funding proposal for research. Now it's different, right? So the funding proposal tells the funder, the donor, the government, or a foundation, also of your research. You will also probably do a little bit of like the setup. This is my research, why it's important, this and that, the methodological approach, data analysis. But in a funding proposal, you are also very clear to explain to the funder other things like what's the budget? What are sort of like the justification of the budget? And how does the budget relate to the project or research activities that you do? So it gets a little bit more in these sort of like, what are you going to do and why some of the things you're going to do have some budgetary implications, right? So you want to explain this. And then, of course, the funder would want to know, is this sustainable? Are you collaborating? Are there many priorities that funding organizations will set out? And so you have to explain your research content, but in relationship to those priorities. Now I want to move to the fourth icon, which is closer to where AIFIS-Luce fellowship is. It's a proposal for a research fellowship, but it's really for a short-term research visit in the US, right? So it's a proposal really that is about not just the research content, but the research visit in the US. That contributes to the goals of AIFIS and goals of AIFIS-Luce fellowship program, right? Which is to bridge and have more engagements between US and Indonesian scholars, but also advance Indonesian scholars, research competencies. But it's a very specific one. So if you think about it in a spectrum, from the left side, thesis and dissertation proposal, it's all about the research. It's all about speaking to the academic community or your guidance community or the dissertation committee. And on the right side here, we're getting more into a very specific type of communicating. And for the right side, the research fellowship, for the AIFIS-Luce, it's really, you're communicating to the reviewers, like Professor Gigi Weeks mentioned, you're communicating to the reviewers when they have their own priorities about what this fellowship program needs to do. So here are some examples, or rather, here are some proposal to how you may approach this proposal. A working plan, if I may. It's a proposal, please consider it. So these are taken directly from the paragraph that is included in the call for application. Here are the 5 things that I think the reviewers are really looking for. They are looking for research project significance, so a little bit on that left spectrum, what is the research and why is it important, significant? But they're also looking for the AIFIS-Luce fellowship project, the aim and the scope, the nature of the project, which is within the research. And then they're really wanting to know proposed activities. What are you going to do during your research visit in the US? It's 6 weeks, it's 40 days, whatever it is. And then they want to know more about the collaboration. And then they want to know about your qualifications. So if I may, here are some of the guiding questions. And I can share this with the committee. But Megan can also forward it over to make this available to others. So what do we mean? Here's my working plan if I were to apply for this. I will start with the research project significance, but very briefly, very briefly, introduce my research problem, briefly describe and explain how my project connects to and advances the field of Indonesian studies that was particularly mentioned and asked by the call for application, and briefly describe how does this contribute to the existing work on my specific topic and field. This is your left spectrum. This is about the research content. But then I would quickly move to, okay, the fellowship project, this visit that I'm going to do. I would propose, here's how I would do it. One of the ways, I'm not saying this is the only way. I would say, I would describe and explain the components of my research that are aided by the activities I will conduct during my research visit. So I would ask myself, so why does my project require my presence in the US? Which part? Is it sort of, am I trying to formulate the problem so I have to talk to this professor? Am I trying to go to this archives or museum because I don't have access to primary sources? Am I trying to strengthen my data and sort of methodological approach? Do I go to a center of, for data, big data, statistic, probability, and analyses to strengthen my data statistical analysis? So just think about the component within your bigger research that really will benefit from the visit. And then I would go quickly into what are the activities? I think Prof. Hadi laid out a very good example of this. He did this and that and this and that, and this is what was the benefit. So I would ask myself, what are the activities? What are my goals and objectives for each type of activity? Again, loving Prof. Hadi's example of the variety of activities. And then say something concrete about, is it a library, museum, archives, or other resources, and resources being units, departments, personnel, or any, that are available in the host institution and that we plan to use in the research. And then, of course, this is really important. Which US scholars, so identify the US scholars, maybe multiple, maybe singular, an institution that will host your research visit. And what are the roles and why that person and what are their qualifications? And then describe and explain their involvement in your project. What are they doing? How are they helping you in specific components? And then lastly, establish your competency, right? How have my experiences and qualification established me and my competence in carrying out these required research activities? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 would be sort of like my attempt. But as you see, it's very brief and make it as concrete as possible. It is 1,500 words or less, 1,500, dibagi 5, kira-kira 300 kata. So you're really moving and streaming your thoughts, and hopefully you can communicate this clearly to the review committee. So I think that's my proposal. Good luck and all the best. And I'll turn it back to Megan. Thank you.
Thank you, Bella. Such a very, very clear presentation of how to do a research proposal. And Bella is very right in that we are looking for the feasibility of your project as you are working on particular tasks that are situated within a larger research project, but are specifically accomplished in the US. So we've been intentionally left a rather long amount of time for Q&A. So I'd like for us to really just open the floor for any questions that anyone has. Either you can drop them in the chat or feel free to unmute yourself. We can answer questions directly. I see a hand. Why don't we hear from Jati Ariati?
Thank you for the opportunity. I have two questions. First, about the number of the scholars from the US we can invite to this project. Can I invite more than one scholars from two universities, or that's from only one university? And then the second one, my understanding for the letter of recommendation, if we are a doctoral students, one of the letters should be from the advisor. If we already have the PhD degree, who will give for the second letter? Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go ahead and gather a couple of more questions. I see there are a few more hands raised. And then we'll start answering them. So perhaps next, Riyati Rafiuddin.
Thank you, Megan. Hi, Isabel. I presented the paper in the MSU conference several months ago. It's good to be back here again and to see Megan here. And my question is that, is there any topic that we should follow that to be considered in the application? I understand is that like Indonesian studies. Is that but the specific focus of the studies depends on the researcher, or depends on the AIFIS community? That's the first question. And the second question is, I have my master degree in OU, Ohio University, in Athens, in America, but long time ago. And what Isabel presented, that we need to be specific in, we want to go, how would we, I know that the internet will provide that, but how would we know that the specific things will be, we can get the information from, so that we can write down the specific place or specific institution that we need to go? That's my second question. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go ahead and hear from the last hand that's raised. Ima Frafika.
Okay, thank you. Good morning from Indonesia. I'm sorry I cannot open my video. Okay, so actually I have a question. I think this is almost similar with the other question. And the first is about the partner from US. Actually, you have explained about if we want to make connection, or we have to collaboration with US partner, we can to open website from AIFIS, and then we can to give or send email, right? Like that. We can to send email from the, maybe we have the choosing from the, maybe from the University of Chicago or etc. So my question is, maybe it's like a basic question. If we have or sending email from the one of professor from US and there is no answering, what we should do? I'm sorry about my question, because I have many experience about it. And then about the proposal, there is a 10 example from the proposal or title, because we have the connection between US and Indonesia, or there is a 10 suggestion or partner or title about proposal. Because we have the target, the proposal should thesis or dissertation, or we should as students of thesis or master or degree, master and PhD, or we can do free. It's like general proposal, maybe like that. And because yesterday when I opened the application, there is the certain form we should submit pre-transcript of pre-doctoral, like that. This is one of the requirement how we can to submit this proposal. Okay, this is about my question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Let's go ahead and begin answering some questions. I see there are 2 more hands, so we will come back to you in just a moment. I maybe would like to start with just a very few kind of logistical answers, and then I will open up to Gigi and Bella if you'd like to add any more details. The first question about the number of US scholars that you might work with, and really this is going to be our answer for a lot of these questions. It really is going to be determined by you. So what are you planning to do? Who do you need to work with? Whether you need to bring in 1 or 2 US scholars to do that will be determined by the parameters of your research. That said, it is going to be important for there to be one main US counterpart who will help sponsor your visa for coming to the US. So there might be a kind of a primary person that's going to help you with your research and also with the administrative. And then there might be additional people that you want to reach out to, in which case you would write them in your application, but they might not be your primary counterpart for the purposes of attaining visas. The question about letters of recommendation, this is also going to be something that I would like for you all to consider. Who's going to recommend your application and be able to speak to the strength of your work the best? We have some recommendations about, it coming from the US counterpart can be a very strong recommendation because they will speak directly to the feasibility of the kind of research engagement that you're looking to conduct in the US. Another reason why we like to see advisors for dissertation projects is because, again, they can speak to why you are most qualified to conduct this research in the US. That said, a lot of scholars can speak to those areas in your own research. So I would say if that is a colleague, if you are already a lecturer, if that is a colleague at your home institution and they can speak to that feasibility, that would be a great recommendation as well. So it is open, and I would just think about what will create the kind of strongest support for your application. Let's see. Also, I wanted to just speak to the question of preference area, and maybe I will also throw this one to Gigi as a follow-up. There are no specific priority areas for who we will be giving research fellowships to. We have seen a really wide range of scholars that we have brought to the US. But the link to Indonesian studies is an interesting one. And maybe I'd like Gigi to speak a little bit to this. Some of you who are applying for this fellowship will have Indonesian studies already deeply embedded in your research, right? You'll be looking at Indonesian contexts. You'll be seeing data drawn from Indonesia. Others of you might not have so much of a centrality of Indonesia within your research methodologies, and that's okay too. In that case, you would then be a representative of Indonesia as central to that kind of research happening in the US. So it doesn't have to be a direct connection to Indonesian studies, but it does, and as Gigi mentioned previously, you are going to serve as a kind of ambassador of Indonesian scholars or Indonesian scholarship for Americans in the US. Gigi, would you want to follow up on that?
I'm going to break in, Marigan, because you're.
Yes, please go ahead.
So one of my slides would show all the different fields that we have funded already. And if it's a field from the humanities on literature or anthropology or cultural studies or history, then the focus on Indonesia is obvious for you. And you're bringing it into the US and using the resources perhaps at a particular library at Berkeley or Cornell, and you're looking for primary sources. But we also fund people in the sciences, in health, in education, and professional schools, because right now, what we want to encourage is the exchange and partnership and conversations across scholars from Indonesia and the United States about their work. So our goal is, we don't expect that people will publish together necessarily. That might happen, but the real goal is to further your research, help you in your career to do the best work you can do, involving specific resources and specific individuals in the United States that you will be able to share your work with, and then start a kind of network and relationship with that individual, perhaps with that center or that department or that institution. So we keep it very broad that way because we know that Indonesian studies will benefit from scholarship across all those fields.
Thank you, Bu Gigi. I wanted also to address the question of how do you know the specifics of what you need to do? This is going to be another important thing for having a research collaborator in the US who maybe knows what kind of research you're doing and would be able to point you to the archives, the institutions, other scholars who might be able to advance that research. So it takes some reconnaissance on your part in terms to begin that conversation with US scholars and get that feedback so that you can make, an educated guess about what the specifics are. We know full well that it might go in different directions, that new opportunities will come to you while you're in the US, but for the proposal for the application, you really need to have a few concerted targets to be able to let our review committees know what your aims are. On that note, outreach to US partners and the question of what if you send an email and they don't reply? Send another one and then send another one.
Well, I would even say this is why you should look at the individuals on the AIFIS board. We have 40 institutions with an individual at each of those universities. And if you don't get an email response from a particular professor, I would reach out to one of those Indonesianists because they will help you find the person, because they know, and we all, in all of our careers, people helped us come to Indonesia to do our research. So we feel, a moral obligation to help you find the people that you're looking for. And whether that's by email or by letters or by phone calls, that's really what we hope to begin, is to create this network of people who can help match scholars with the people they're looking for.
Mm-hmm. And not every path is going to be a productive one. So you might hit a dead end, reach out to us, and we'll try to open up another path for you to explore as well. So be in contact with us, because we are regularly sort of pointing people, oh, you're into this topic, I know a scholar at this institution. It's a lot of matchmaking that we need to do. So really just let us know if you're not finding a partner, and we'll see if we can point you in a direction there. I'm not sure if I totally understood the question about transcripts, but let me just speak to, we do have a minimum sort of eligibility requirement of master's level or equivalent professional degree. So in the case that you don't have transcripts because you're in a professional degree, provide something that establishes that context for us. The reason, though, we do have this as a minimum requirement is typically master's level, PhD, and post-PhD researchers are in the game of advancing research knowledge over long periods of time. And we want you to be able to establish research connections that will feed later into your advancement in your professional careers. So that's one of the reasons. So the transcripts are, if it's available to you, include it. If there's something else that would be more appropriate to your specific circumstances, include that as well. All right, let's go ahead and take a couple more questions. I think I saw Arini Utami first, and then we'll hear from Nurdia Helda. Go ahead, Arini.
Okay, thank you. Hello, everyone. I'm a lecturer from UGM, Indonesia. So I have 3 questions. The first one is that I'm not so clear yet with the proposal. Do the project needs research questions? If so, can we get an example of research question, probably from Pak Abdul Hadi? And then the second one, so in my understanding, this fellowship will use J1 visa. And so Professor Wick gave us example about, for example, like writing for Fulbright proposal. So I guess this is for the following year. While Fulbright also use J1 visa, does it mean that the 2-year residency requirement will be waived? If, for example, we get the Fulbright for the next following year, or how is it operating? The third one is that, will there be a priority for applicants with no significant experience in the US? That's all. Thank you.
Thank you for your questions. Let's go ahead and take a few more from Nurdia Hilda, and then we'll begin to answer. Ibu Nurdia, if you'd like to go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hello, can you
Yes.
hear my voice?
Yes, yeah, now we
Okay.
can.
Thank you for the time. I have a question. Currently, I'm a PhD student. I'm a PhD candidate in Civil Engineering Department at University of Nebraska-Lincoln. And actually, I'm doing research now in my final year to finish my degree in Indonesia. Am I eligible to apply for this program? And then, is there any maximum age for applying this program? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Was there another hand that I saw, or another question in the chat, I believe?
There was a question about business and management as a field of study.
Okay. Every topic is welcome. I see Ana Kristi Suwardi. I see a hand. Why don't you go ahead?
Selamat pagi, good morning. My questions is that as Indonesian, I'm based and affiliated in a university in Thailand. Would it be fine in terms of eligibility regarding my affiliation? Thank you.
Thank you. Let me speak just first quickly to the eligibility questions, but then I think, Bella, I'd like to hear your perspective on the question of the research question, as well as the visa question, I think. But let's see, we are going to give priority to Indonesian scholars based at Indonesian universities. That should not be a limitation, though, for you to still apply. We will still be considering the strength of applications in addition to the location of scholars. For Ibu Nurdia Hilda, already being affiliated with the University of Nebraska Lincoln would be, that is stretching the boundaries of what this grant is technically designed for. And that is that we are trying to get more Indonesian scholars who have not already had the access and ability to travel to the US to travel to the US. So I'm not going to say you're not eligible, but that we would have a stronger preference for Indonesian scholars who have not already had that chance. And I think that that also speaks to the question of, this is perfectly, if you have not had any experience in the US, this is precisely the fellowship for you, in that we really want you to begin to have that connection with US scholars. So in that regard, we are trying to build capacity of more Indonesian scholars to be able to collaborate with US scholars. There's also no age limitation for this. This is open to all scholars of all ages, as long as one has the sort of minimum requirement of a master's degree. So I think those were the questions about of eligibility. But Bubella, would you like to talk a little bit about the research question as well as issues with J1 visas?
Sure. Thank you for the question. So in my proposal would be in your development of the proposal, do establish the significance of your research. So the research project significance and what is it and what does your research do? That includes sort of like, what are your research questions, right? Because it's sort of like, it's that really brief summary of it before you then go into, this is what I want to understand and know or critique. And therefore, these are some of the things that I have to do for the research, sort of like methodologically and, analytically in terms of data. And then you can explain then why going to the US, your presence in the US will aid your research and help with the outcomes. So yeah, research question, do include it in there. And, in terms of, I think perhaps a different conversation can focus on what research questions look like that are sort of like productive for this type of fellowship. Secondly, on the J1 issue, and I wonder also, here are, if I may, I know we are kind of closing in on the hour or just passing 1 minute of the hour, but if I may share my screen, here is what I see in terms of, are you able to see the browser on my window? Mm-hmm. So there is such a thing as a waiver for exchange visitors, J1, 2-year home country physical presence. However, these are the questions that I think we all must face. So, am I subject to the 2-year home country physical presence requirement, which means that do I have to go back for 2 years after this J1 that's affiliated with my AIFIS-Luce fellowship? And it seems, and correct me if I'm wrong, Megan, Payosef, and Anas, if this seems, an international organization that received funding from the US. But then again, at the same time, the Luce Foundation is not US government. So I wonder if,
I think we have to research that question and be able to post it, because we don't want you to apply for this and use a J1 visa and then preclude the possibility of being able to apply for a J1 visa for Fulbright. So if it is either or, we want you to know that.
Yeah. Right. So in my reading of this, it seems like it can be waived. It can be waived.
If it can, then
yeah, it's as in like the 2-year physical presence requirement, because I think this is the Luce Foundation funding, not the US government agency funding, even though AIFIS does receive funding from the US. So yeah, I think we'll have to perhaps, Payosef, any other insights here?
Yes, thank you, Bella. As far as understanding regarding visa, it depends the arrangement with the host. If the host university requires J1, then you need to have a J1. But if not, then that could be discussed with the host. Because in the past, I believe we had a similar arrangement like that, and it's no problem. And it depends. And the most important thing, the scholars will not to be working or receive compensation while it's in the US. That's the only concern. But otherwise, contact your host or your partner in the US and make sure about this arrangement. Thank you.
Thank you, Yosef.
If I can answer the one question in the chat about the deadline of November 30th.
Yes.
Our purpose here is to encourage you to contact us for help in locating counterparts now, because it is possible to find a host counterpart and fulfill the application in the next month. These are short stays, limited projects. We have a lot of contacts. It is feasible to be able to find a counterpart in the next 5 weeks. That said, the person who asked about business and management programs, that would be a more difficult question, because there are over 500 business schools in the United States, and there are business schools in Indonesia. You would have to justify and show the connection of why you would need to come to the US to a particular place. Now, I'm sure you could. That argument could be made to say there's a particular scholar at Wisconsin. He's working on a project that I want to talk to him. That's why I want to go there in the field of business and management. But that argument would need to be made.
I wonder if I may add a few. Are we out of time?
We can go over a little bit, I think.
Okay.
There are questions.
Yeah, building up on, I think, Dr. Weeks' comments with the finding partners and counterparts. Part of the, plotting your activities and what is possible I would also suggest sort of like a metaphor of like cooking, mamasak. To cook something, sometimes we don't know what we need, so we look for a recipe. And then after understanding, okay, this is kind of what I need, and then, we think about where to get the ingredients from the recipe. And so those ingredients, we might need to look at the market, sometimes maybe in Tokopedia or maybe in the grocery store, the hypermart or something. And that requires you to browse around. So the research of what universities or who are the scholars and what resources are available in the US, it's like shopping for your ingredients. It might be really useful to, for example, browse the websites of different universities, I think, or where our board members are. And Professor Gigi also mentioned the list of national resource centers with centers for Southeast Asian studies. Go to those university website and look for a web page under their university website that focuses on research. And there are so many units, department, or centers that could do so many things to enhance research of students and researchers at the university. So you may benefit from those and get ideas. So it's kind of like looking up recipes. Oh, I didn't know I could do salmon with turmeric and ginger or something. So you get ideas of what you can do to do your cooking, and then you can try to find where you can get help and who can best help you. I wonder if that metaphor is helpful. Yeah.
Thank you, Bella.
Megan, may I respond to a question?
Yes, please.
From Bu Arini about the research question. Yeah, I think the answer is yes. We need to express our research question, because this is common in proposals. We should include this, and also because if I'm not mistaken, we have to also submit literature reviews. Yeah, I think apart from the project description, we also need to submit one page of literature reviews where we can, we must actually state our research question apart from the collection of literature that have been done and related to our project proposal. Yeah, that's, I think, my additional information. Thank you.
Thank you, Pat Hadi. All right, I think that, I don't know if, were there any other messages in the chat that we missed? I think we are probably going to need to come to a close, but we have prepared an FAQ sheet that we will be posting on the AIFIS website after this event, that we encourage you all to review, and please continue to send us your questions and we will continue to update the FAQ sheet. So I want to thank Pat Hadi, Bu Gigi, Bu Bella, and everyone here for joining us for this session. I hope that it encourages you to apply, to reach out to us, to find US research counterparts, and to sustain these kinds of collaborative efforts together. So thank you all once again for your time, and we look forward to reviewing your applications. Have a great day.
Okay, terima kasih.
Thank you.
Good luck, everyone.
Good luck.
Semangat.
Terima kasih.
Thank you very much.